Welcome back to Reds Fusion LFC. Today's episode is packed with explosive Liverpool drama. Arne Slot finally breaks silence on Wataru Endo's selection. A furious Premier League legend blasts the Reds over the £125 million Isak saga. And the dressing room is reportedly split over who's to blame for the shocking dip in form. PLUS Liverpool hand a debut to a 14-year-old Wonderkid, while Arsenal and Chelsea circle like sharks. Stay locked in. This is one update you cannot miss. Let's dive into the chaos. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to stay updated with every twist and turn in the transfer window.
Arne Slot explains Wataru Endo selection decision as Liverpool set for triple fitness boost. Arne Slot has explained why Wataru Endo is likely to remain on the bench at West Ham United, where Liverpool could welcome back three key players. Arne Slot has explained his decision to continue overlooking Wataru Endo from the Liverpool starting lineup despite the Japan international being the only traditional defensive midfielder in his squad. Endo has been restricted to just 36 minutes of action across 4 substitute appearances in the Premier League this season, with his only starts coming in the League Cup. With Liverpool's porous midfield contributing to the concession of 10 goals in the last 3 games, there have been calls from supporters for Endo to feature more prominently, having made just one brief top-flight outing since August. But Slot believes the form of Ryan Gravenberch means there has been no urge yet to turn to the 32-year-old. When quizzed about the lack of opportunities for Endo, Slot said, "I prefer not to talk about individuals, but since you ask, he is in the position Ryan is in. Ryan is not performing the worst from all of our players. That is Ryan's best position, and the same as Wata. When I used him as a right back against Bournemouth, I got criticized. I got told I got criticized. Ryan is one of the few who has been fit throughout the whole season. That is the answer." Joe Gomez is another player who has barely featured this season, despite being able to offer cover at both centre-back and right-back, 2 positions where Liverpool have been hit by injury absences. Slot chose not to risk Gomez from the bench over the last week after the defender had an injection in his knee, although the 28-year-old is a strong contender to start at the London Stadium this weekend. But the Reds boss said, "I think we have played a lot of different lineups for reasons I prefer not to do because everyone was not available. We have used our whole squad constantly without Wata and Joe. Florian Wirtz could be in the squad, having missed the last 2 games with a muscle problem, while Alisson Becker is back following illness, and Hugo Ekitike is expected to be available after being forced off against PSV Eindhoven in midweek with a back spasm. Andy Robertson, Federico Chiesa, Alexander Isak and Rion Gumaha are all pressing for a start, but defenders Connor Bradley, Jeremy Frimpong and Giovanni Leone remain out. Now is a new experience," said Slot, regarding Liverpool's poor run of 9 defeats in 12 games. "I always find it hard to learn from things. This must not sound wrong, but next time there will be different players or clubs involved. I never think, 3 years ago I lost 1 game and did that meeting and used that tactic, so let me use this again now. That is not how it works. There are so many things that go into it. There is no specific thing I would do differently in a few years. Because I don't know which team I have to work with. It is clear and obvious that not all the decisions we made were excellent. Maybe to start with, not playing Wata." Newcastle favourite SLAMS Liverpool over £125 million Alexander Isak transfer, a complete D******. Former Newcastle United midfielder Nicky but slams Alexander Isak and Liverpool's decision to pay £125 million for the striker. Former Newcastle United midfielder Nicky but has branded Alexander Isak's price tag as ridiculous and criticised Liverpool's decision to bring the £125 million striker to Anfield in September. And the ex-Magpies man believes the nature of Isak's acrimonious departure from Tyneside is proof that the Sweden international may have upset the apple cart on Merseyside, as the Reds aim to end a run of 9 defeats from 12 when they take on West Ham United on Sunday. Isak moved to Liverpool on transfer deadline day when the 2 clubs agreed a British record deal after the frontman had publicly agitated for weeks about his desire to leave St James Park. After being banished from pre-season training by manager Eddie Howe, Isak arrived at his new club without the benefit of a summer schedule behind him and has struggled to get up to speed as a result. But was scathing in his assessment of Isak's controversial exit, saying the player's actions look like they have unsettled the dressing room at Anfield. I still think the Isak won, even though he did really well at Newcastle. I think the price tag for him was ridiculous, but told the good, the bad, and the football podcast. The circumstances were ridiculous, and I do think when you bring people into a squad, if you upset the apple cart if you like, that squad had just won the league. If you bring a player in for that much money who has just kicked up such a fuss to leave a club that looked after him and, let's be honest, gave him a chance, that is alarm bells ringing for me. I don't care what anybody says, and I understand why the lad wanted to leave Newcastle because Liverpool had just won the league, but that is alarm bells ringing for me. I am telling you now, if you start messing about with the squad's dynamic that is done so well the year before, then you are asking for trouble. I know it is easy to sit here and say it in the aftermath, but with Isak and the circumstances around it all, it is just never going to work. But, who played for Newcastle between 2004 and 2010, added, I might sit here in 9 months' time and look like an absolute D*** for saying that if he goes and scores a load of goals, and I am sure he is very capable of doing that. But I am telling you now, if you have got a proper squad built where you have each other's back, that squad will be tight. You won't all be best mates, but when you affect a squad and affect it in a really dodgy way, in my opinion, you are asking for trouble. If I was sat in the changing room with a player who was a 7 or 8 out of 10 every week but a great lad, I would rather have him in my team than someone who was a superstar and is 9 out of 10 every week but is a complete D. By the way, I am not saying Isak is a D. I don't know his personality, but there were certain dynamics around that transfer that just wasn't right. I have spoken to a few of the older, former, Liverpool players, and they have said the same. After what has been said, you wouldn't want to welcome him into your squad. No chance. Man United legend says Liverpool was asking for trouble with Alexander Isak transfer. Former Manchester United midfielder Nicky Butt has criticised Liverpool's British record signing of Alexander Isak, calling the transfer ridiculous and asking for trouble. Liverpool's British transfer record signing of Alexander Isak from Newcastle United was a ridiculous decision. That is the damning assessment of former Newcastle and Manchester United midfielder Nicky Butt, who believes the circumstances surrounding the transfer were asking for trouble. Isak ultimately moved to the Reds after effectively downing tools on Tyneside to engineer a departure. He has been struggling with fitness ever since and remains without a goal in either the Premier League or the Champions League for his new club. Isak is amongst several expensive summer acquisitions who have struggled to make an immediate impact at Anfield, but maintains alarm bells ought to have been sounding within the squad following the decision to pursue Isak given his behaviour during the summer at Newcastle, reports. He has also implied that approving the transfer despite those circumstances may have disrupted the squad harmony on Merseyside. I still think the Isak won, even though he did really well at Newcastle. I think the price tag for him was ridiculous, but told the good, the bad, and the football podcast. The circumstances were ridiculous, and I do think when you bring people into a squad, if you upset the apple cart if you like, that squad had just won the league. If you bring a player in for that much money who has just kicked up such a fuss to leave a club that looked after him and, let's be honest, gave him a chance, that is alarm bells ringing for me. I don't care what anybody says, and I understand why the lad wanted to leave Newcastle because Liverpool had just won the league, but that is alarm bells ringing for me. I am telling you now, if you start messing about with the squad's dynamic that is done so well the year before, then you are asking for trouble. I know it is easy to sit here and say it in the aftermath, but with Isak and the circumstances around it all, it is just never going to work. I might sit here in 9 months' time and look like an absolute D for saying that if he goes and scores a load of goals, and I am sure he is very capable of doing that. But I am telling you now, if you have got a proper squad built where you have each other's back, that squad will be tight. You won't all be best mates, but when you affect a squad and affect it in a really dodgy way, in my opinion, you are asking for trouble. If I was sat in the changing room with a player who was a 7 or 8 out of 10 every week but a great lad, I would rather have him in my team than someone who was a superstar and is 9 out of 10 every week but is a complete D***K. By the way, I am not saying Isak is a D***K. I don't know his personality, but there were certain dynamics around that transfer that just wasn't right. I have spoken to a few of the older, former, Liverpool players, and they have said the same. After what has been said, you wouldn't want to welcome him into your squad. No chance. Arne Slot and Liverpool dressing room disagree over who is to blame for poor form. Liverpool boss Arne Slot has come under pressure for the Reds' form, while the Dutchman's squad is also under scrutiny for their performances since winning the Premier League. There is a feeling in the Liverpool dressing room that they are not delivering for boss Arne Slot, but the Dutchman does not feel like his players are letting him down. The Reds have been in woeful form of late, and their 9th defeat in 12 games against PSV Eindhoven means this is their worst run of form in 72 years. Their most recent Premier League defeat at the hands of Nottingham Forest a week ago saw raised voices in the dressing room at full-time, and it has emerged that players are frustrated with how the season is unfolding. It's understood that the consensus among those in the dressing room is that Slot is being let down by his players, who have underperformed this season. After spending significantly in the summer to bolster Slot's squad, few expected such a fall. But while Liverpool's players feel they are responsible for the team's current slump, Slot has refused to point the finger at his squad. Instead, he made it clear that he did not feel that way at all in his press conference ahead of Sunday's game at West Ham. "No, not at all," he said when such a question was put to him. "Although I do agree with you that our standards, and with our, I mean the team, they have not been of the standards we are used to and that we want. We think we can play better than we do. But last season when we did really well there was a lot of focus on certain individuals, and I always said it should be about the team, and the team makes the individuals look very good. If the opposite is happening, we should also look at the team and not the individuals. That's what it's about for me." Virgil van Dijk has fronted up on more than one occasion about the team's performance, while Curtis Jones has also vented his frustration. There is discontent around Anfield. Former Germany international Jurgen Klinsmann has suggested the group need to come together. Speaking to ESPN, he said, "It is a difficult task for any manager when you are in a negative spiral and tasked to turn it around. Do you look deep into your roster, look deep into your individual players and try to figure out why they are not performing at their usual level? There are different ways. Some coaches do more training on the pitch, maybe they overwork them. Some coaches do less and say, let's go out to the pub, have a couple of beers and get the spirit back. It's a mental problem, a mental block that leads to the fact they lose the 1v1 battles, they are always a step too late getting into the challenges and are not convinced of finishing things off. Maybe they are thinking we overdid it on big transfers in the summer and we have too many so-called future stars on our roster because, at the end of the day, only 11 can play. You have 3, 4, 5, 6 guys who are used to playing and they are not happy. When things go well, everything is quiet, everyone is all right and nobody says a bad word. But when things go wrong, behind the scenes people talk to each other, players talk to each other, and you have to stop the negative spiral. I'm sure he will try to do everything he can to stop it, and then you can only come back with wins. They need a far more physical approach than they did recently. They need to fight first, then play wonderful football." Liverpool hand debuted a 14-year-old amid Arsenal and Chelsea interest in winger. The teenager came off the bench as Liverpool under-18s suffered a heavy defeat. Liverpool under-18s suffered a resounding 7-0 loss to Manchester United at the AXA training centre. The young Reds were well beaten by United's youngsters in the U18 Premier League North clash. But the most interesting perspective from Liverpool's end is that they handed a debut to a teenager playing well above his age group. In the 84th minute, Luca Eden came off the bench. The midfielder, who hails from the Wirral, is still only aged 14 and is part of the under-15 setup. There was also a full bow for Max Howden, who is part of the under-16 setup. Hawkins played 90 minutes in defense for Simon Weil's side. However, there was no Josh Abe featuring for the Reds. The 15-year-old winger has made 5 appearances for the under-18s this campaign, producing 2 goals and 2 assists. Abe has reportedly attracted interest from Premier League rivals Chelsea and Arsenal ahead of reaching scholarship age next season. He would be able to leave Liverpool for a cut price fee if he does not opt to pen a contract.